My name is Emma Blackwood, and this is the story of how I got my revenge. But before I tell you what I did, you need to understand what they did to me, what they turned me into. Because monsters aren't born, they're made. And sometimes the people who create monsters deserve to meet them. This happened 3 years ago, when I was 17. I've never told anyone the complete truth before. Not the police, not the therapists, not even my own family. But tonight, I'm going to tell you everything. Every sick, twisted detail of what I discovered about myself, and what I'm still capable of. So grab something to drink, get comfortable, and whatever you do, don't stop listening until the end. Because the real story isn't about what I did to them. It's about what they made me realize I always was. 3 years ago, I thought I had the perfect life. I lived in Millbrook, one of those picture-perfect small towns where everyone knows everyone, and the biggest scandal is usually someone's affair or a teenager getting caught drinking. I was a senior at Millbrook High, had decent grades, and was dating Tyler Martinez, who was basically the golden boy of our school. Captain of the football team, student council president, the whole package. My best friends were Sarah Kim and Jessica Walsh. We'd been inseparable since middle school. Sarah was the brain of our group. She had already gotten early admission to MIT. Jessica was the wild one, always pushing boundaries, always up for anything. And me, I guess I was the glue that held us together. The reliable one, the one who always had everyone's back. Or at least, that's what I thought. You see, in a small town like Millbrook, your reputation is everything, and mine was spotless. I volunteered at the animal shelter, helped organize school events, never got in trouble. Teachers loved me, parents trusted me, and other kids. Well, they seemed to like me too. But here's something I learned that year. In small towns, the higher you climb, the farther you have to fall. And when people decide to push you off that pedestal, they make sure you land hard. It all started on a Friday night in October. There was this party at Derek Manning's house. His parents were out of town, and basically everyone who was anyone at school was going to be there. Tyler, Sarah, Jessica, and I had planned to go together. It was supposed to be just another fun night with my friends. I should have known something was wrong when Tyler picked me up that night. He was different, distant. He barely spoke during the car ride, and when I tried to hold his hand, he pulled away and said he needed to focus on driving. I figured he was just nervous about the game next week, or stressed about college applications. When we got to the party, Sarah and Jessica were already there. They seemed excited to see me, maybe a little too excited. Jessica kept giggling at everything I said, and Sarah kept checking her phone. But I was so happy to be with my friends that I didn't think much of it. The party was typical teenage stuff. Loud music, cheap beer, people making out in corners. I wasn't much of a drinker, but Tyler kept bringing me these fruity drinks that barely tasted like alcohol. He said he wanted me to relax and have fun for once, and I did relax. Maybe too much. The last clear memory I have from that night is laughing with Jessica about something stupid. I can't even remember what. After that, everything gets fuzzy. I remember feeling dizzy. Remember Tyler helping me upstairs to lie down for a bit. I remember the room spinning, voices that seemed far away, and then nothing. I woke up the next morning in my own bed, still wearing my clothes from the night before. My head was pounding, my mouth felt like cotton, and I had this terrible feeling that something was very, very wrong. But Tyler was sitting in the chair next to my bed, looking concerned, asking if I was okay. "You had too much to drink," he told me. "I brought you home early. Your parents think you had food poisoning." I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was my boyfriend. He loved me, but that feeling, that something terrible had happened, it never went away. The first sign that something was wrong came on Monday morning. I walked into school expecting everything to be normal, but people were staring at me, whispering, and when I'd catch their eye, they'd quickly look away or start laughing. In first period, someone had written "slut" on my locker in red marker. When I went to the office to report it, Mrs. Henderson, the secretary, looked at me with this mixture of disgust and pity. "Maybe you should think about the choices you're making, Emma," she said. "Actions have consequences." I had no idea what she was talking about. At lunch, I sat with Tyler, Sarah, and Jessica like always. But the conversation felt forced, uncomfortable. Sarah kept avoiding eye contact, and Jessica seemed like she was trying too hard to act normal. Tyler was on his phone the entire time. "What's going on?" I finally asked. "Everyone's acting weird around me today." Jessica and Sarah exchanged a look. "We're sure it's nothing," Sarah said. "You know how people like to gossip. Gossip about what?" That's when Tyler finally looked up from his phone. "Emma, maybe you should just keep your head down for a while. Let things blow over. Let what blow over?" He didn't answer. It was Jessica who finally told me, later that day when we were alone by my locker. "There are pictures," she whispered, looking around to make sure no one was listening. "Pictures of what?" She pulled out her phone and showed me a group text thread. The name of the group was Emma's Big Night, and there were over 50 people in it. What I saw made my blood turn to ice. There were photos of me from Friday night, but not the kind of photos you'd want to see. I was clearly unconscious or close to it in every single one, and I wasn't alone. In some of the pictures, boys from school were posing next to me while I was passed out, making obscene gestures. In others, someone had drawn things on my face with marker. But in the worst ones, I was partially undressed, and there were hands on me, touching me, while I was completely unconscious, and I could hear the laughter in the background of the videos. I could hear my best friends' voices. "Oh my God, this is hilarious. Take another one." She has no idea. I was going to throw up. "Who took these?" I whispered. Jessica couldn't look at me. "Emma, who took these?" "It was supposed to be a joke," she said quickly. "Just a harmless prank. You'd been so uptight lately, and we thought if we could get you to loosen up a little." "You drugged me." "Tyler put something in your drink. Just a little something to help you relax. We weren't going to let anything actually happen to you." But something had happened to me. These pictures were proof of that. "We tried to stop it," Jessica continued, tears in her eyes now. "But Derek and his friends showed up and they thought it was funny. And then more people came upstairs and it just got out of hand." "Sarah knew about this too?" Jessica nodded miserably. "My 3 best friends, the people I trusted most in the world, had conspired to humiliate me in the worst possible way. And now half the school had seen me at my most vulnerable. I spent the rest of that day in the bathroom, throwing up and crying. When I finally came out, more people had been added to the group chat. The pictures were spreading beyond our school. Someone had uploaded them to social media. By the end of the week, the photos had gone viral locally. People were sharing them, making memes out of them, adding their own captions. I became a joke, a cautionary tale, the good girl who finally showed her true colors. My parents found out when someone mailed printed copies to our house. The police said there wasn't much they could do. Since I was 17, the photos weren't technically child pornography, and since no one could prove I hadn't consented to the pictures being taken, it wasn't revenge porn either. It was just a prank gone wrong. The school gave Tyler, Sarah, Jessica, and Derek 2 weeks suspension. I was offered counseling services and the chance to finish my senior year through independent study. I was the victim, but I was the one being punished. That's when I realized that the system wasn't going to help me. The adults weren't going to help me. My friends had already betrayed me. If I wanted justice, I was going to have to get it myself. I spent the next month in isolation. I stopped going to school, stopped leaving my room except for meals. My parents tried to be supportive, but I could see the shame in their eyes. In a small town, something like this doesn't just affect you. It affects your whole family. My dad started getting strange looks at work. My mom stopped going to her book club. My younger brother started getting into fights at school when kids would make jokes about his slut sister. The worst part was that Tyler, Sarah, Jessica, and Derek came back to school after their suspensions like nothing had happened. They were welcomed back. Forgiven. Because boys will be boys, and girls will be girls, and everyone makes mistakes, right? Meanwhile, I was still getting messages from strangers who had seen the photos. Disgusting messages describing what they wanted to do to me. Marriage proposals from creeps who thought I was easy. Death threats from people who thought I was a bad influence on their children. But something changed in me during that month. The pain and humiliation started to transform into something else. Something colder. Harder. I started researching. Learning. I spent hours every day online, studying people like me, people who had been wronged and decided to take matters into their own hands. I learned about psychology, about manipulation, about how to read people and find their weaknesses. I also learned about chemistry. My school had this amazing chemistry lab, and over the years I'd helped out there as a volunteer assistant. I knew where everything was kept, how to access the storage areas, and most importantly, I knew which chemicals could be useful. You see, I had discovered something about myself during those dark weeks. I was very, very good at planning, and I was much smarter than anyone had ever given me credit for. The plan started to form slowly. It wasn't enough to just hurt them. Anyone could do that. I wanted to destroy them completely. I wanted them to feel the same helplessness I had felt, the same humiliation, the same sense of betrayal. But most of all, I wanted them to understand that there are consequences for destroying someone's life, real consequences. The first step was getting back into their circle. This took weeks of careful planning. I had to swallow my pride, pretend to forgive them, convince them that I understood it was just a prank, and that I was ready to move on. I started with Jessica, because she was the weakest link. I showed up at her house one evening with takeout from her favorite restaurant and a bottle of wine I'd stolen from my parents' collection. "I've been thinking," I told her, "and I realize I overreacted. You guys were just trying to help me have fun, and I ruined it by being dramatic." She cried and hugged me and told me how sorry she was, how much she'd missed me. It was almost too easy. Sarah was harder. She was suspicious by nature, and she kept asking why I was suddenly okay with everything. But I'd done my research on Sarah. I knew her biggest fear was not getting into MIT, and I knew she'd been struggling with her calculus class. So I offered to tutor her, and during those tutoring sessions, I slowly rebuilt her trust in me. I told her I understood she was just following Jessica's lead, that I knew she would have stopped things if she could have. She wanted to believe it was true, so she did. Tyler was the biggest challenge. He was still my boyfriend, technically, but things were strained between us. He seemed to genuinely feel guilty about what had happened, which almost made me feel bad about what I was planning. Almost. With Tyler, I used a different approach. I played the role of the grateful girlfriend, who understood he was just trying to help her have fun. I made him believe that I was impressed by how take charge he'd been that night. How it showed me a side of him I'd never seen before. Men are so predictable when you tell them what they want to hear. Within a month, I was back in the group. We were hanging out again, making plans together, acting like the perfect circle of friends. To everyone else, it looked like a beautiful story of forgiveness and redemption. But I was just getting started. The beauty of small towns is that everyone has secrets. And when you're patient, when you pay attention, when you know how to ask the right questions, you can learn those secrets. Over the next few months, I became a collector of information. I learned that Derek Manning was stealing money from his job at his father's hardware store to buy drugs. Not just marijuana, harder stuff. Stuff that could get him serious jail time. I learned that Sarah had been lying about her MIT acceptance. She'd actually been rejected early admission and was terrified of telling anyone. She'd been faking emails from the admissions office to keep up the charade. I learned that Jessica had been hooking up with married men she met on dating apps, including Mr. Peterson, our English teacher, and Chief Morrison, the police chief who had dismissed my case. And Tyler? Tyler had been cheating on me long before the party, with multiple girls, including his own cousin. But the most interesting thing I learned was this. They were planning to do it again. There was going to be another party. Derek's parents were going out of town for their anniversary, and he was planning something even bigger than last time. And Tyler, Sarah, and Jessica were already discussing who their next target would be. They'd picked Amy Chen, a sophomore who was shy, awkward, and desperately wanted to fit in with the popular crowd, just like I had been once upon a time. That's when I knew it was time. The plan I'd been crafting for months was complex, but the beauty was in its simplicity. I wasn't going to hurt them physically. That would make me just like them. Instead, I was going to give them exactly what they had given me: public humiliation and the complete destruction of their reputations. But first, I had to make sure no other girl would go through what I had. I reached out to Amy Chen and told her I'd heard about the party. I warned her about Tyler and the others, told her exactly what they were planning. At first, she didn't believe me. Why would the popular kids want to hurt her? So I showed her the photos they had taken of me. Amy was horrified, but she was also smart. She agreed to help me on one condition. She wanted to record everything. She wanted proof of what these people were really like. Perfect. That played right into my plan. The party was scheduled for Friday night, 2 weeks before graduation. I spent those 2 weeks making final preparations. I set up fake social media accounts. I created email addresses that couldn't be traced back to me. I prepared packages containing printed materials to be delivered at specific times. Most importantly, I prepared the surprise I had been saving for last. You see, while I'd been playing the part of the forgiving friend, I'd also been conducting a little science experiment. Those chemistry skills I'd mentioned, I'd been putting them to good use. I had created something special, something that would ensure this night would be unforgettable. Friday night arrived and everything was falling into place perfectly. Amy and I had coordinated our timing down to the minute. She would arrive at the party early, wearing a wire that would record everything. I would show up later, playing my part as the trusting friend who had no idea what was planned. When I got to Derek's house around 9 p.m., the party was already in full swing. Tyler greeted me with a kiss and a drink, the same kind of fruity cocktail he'd given me that night 6 months earlier. "Thanks, babe," I said, taking a sip. It tasted normal, which meant they hadn't drugged it yet. They were waiting for the right moment. Sarah and Jessica were huddled together by the stairs, whispering and giggling. When they saw me, they waved me over. "Emma!" "Perfect timing," Jessica said. "We were just talking about Amy. Have you seen her? She looks so cute tonight." I looked around and spotted Amy by the food table. She was dressed up more than usual, clearly trying to impress people. She caught my eye and gave me the slightest nod. The recording equipment was working. "She does look nice," I agreed. "You guys aren't planning anything mean, are you?" "I know how you can be," Sarah laughed. "Just a little fun. Nothing she won't laugh about later." If they only knew. The party progressed exactly as I had predicted. Tyler kept bringing me drinks, each one a little stronger than the last. Derek was making crude comments about Amy and talking about how easy freshman girls were. Jessica was encouraging Amy to drink more, telling her it would help her fit in better. Around 11 p.m., Tyler put his arm around me and leaned in close. "You feeling good, babe?" "You look a little tired." I wasn't tired, but I played along. "Maybe a little. That last drink was strong. Want to go lie down for a bit? I'll stay with you, make sure you're okay." And there it was. The same script they'd used on me. "That sounds nice," I said, letting him lead me toward the stairs. That was Amy's cue. As we passed by her, I accidentally bumped into her and whispered, "Now." What happened next was beautiful in its simplicity. Amy suddenly stood up on a chair and raised her voice so everyone could hear her. "Hey everyone. I have something fun to show you all." She pulled out a small device, a wireless speaker connected to her phone. Before anyone could react, she started playing the audio she had been recording all night. The entire party heard Tyler's voice. "Just slip it in her drink when she's not looking." Same stuff we used on Emma. They heard Derek. "This one's even hotter than Emma was. I can't wait to get some pictures." They heard Jessica. "Should we draw on her face again?" "That was hilarious last time." They heard Sarah. "Just make sure someone's recording." "I want to see her face when she finds out." The room went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop, but I wasn't done yet. "That's not all," I said, stepping forward and taking the speaker from Amy. "See, while you all were planning your little repeat performance, I was doing some planning of my own." I pulled out my phone and opened a video chat with multiple people I had been talking to for months. Reporters from 3 different news stations, a detective from the state police, and Amy's parents. "Hi, everyone," I said cheerfully. "Thanks for joining us tonight. I hope you all heard that clearly." The panic on their faces was priceless. But wait, there's more. "Oh, and Tyler, remember that drink you gave me earlier? The one you said was just fruit punch? I had it tested. Rohypnol again. Same as last time. Which means this time, we have you on multiple felonies. Tyler went white as a sheet. And Derek, those drugs you've been dealing out of your dad's store? I have photos of your entire operation, including your customer list, which includes several minors. Derek started backing toward the door, but I'd anticipated that. Sarah, how's MIT going? Oh wait, that's right, you never got in, but you've been cashing scholarship checks meant for college expenses. That's fraud. Sarah started crying. And Jessica, oh Jessica. Mr. Peterson sends his regards. He's very interested in talking to the police about your relationship. Apparently, he has some concerns about the text messages you've been sending him. Jessica ran for the bathroom. I could hear her throwing up, but I still wasn't finished. See, the thing about revenge is that it's not just about punishment. It's about justice. And justice means making sure you can never do this to anyone else. I held up a small device, a USB drive. This contains copies of everything. Every photo you took of me, every message you sent, every plan you made, every crime you committed. And starting tomorrow morning, copies of this drive will be delivered to the police, the school board, the local newspaper, and the parents of every person in this room. The remaining party guests started to panic, trying to get to their phones to delete evidence, but it was too late. I had been collecting screenshots and recordings for months. Oh, and one more thing, I said, smiling sweetly. Remember that science project I did on delayed reaction chemicals? Well, let's just say that everyone who drank from the punch bowl tonight is going to have a very interesting few hours. That wasn't true. I hadn't actually poisoned anyone. But they didn't know that, and the psychological effect was immediate. People started panicking, some ran home to throw up, others called their parents or 911. In the chaos that followed, Tyler, Derek, Sarah, and Jessica tried to run. But the state police were already outside. I had called them an hour earlier and told them exactly when to arrive. The trials were a media sensation. A small-town revenge story involving drugs, sexual assault, fraud, and corruption. The news outlets couldn't get enough of it. Tyler was convicted of sexual assault and drug-related charges. He got 5 years in prison. Derek was convicted on drug-dealing charges and accessory to sexual assault. He got 7 years. Sarah was convicted of fraud and accessory to sexual assault. She got 3 years probation and community service, and she'll never work in any field requiring trust or security clearance. Jessica was convicted of contributing to the delinquency of minors, accessory to sexual assault, and statutory rape, her relationship with the minor she'd met on the dating app. She got 4 years in prison. Mr. Peterson lost his job and his marriage. Chief Morrison was forced to retire early. Several other people who had been involved in covering up the original incident faced consequences. As for me, I became something of a local hero, the girl who had stood up to her bullies and won. I got interviews, speaking opportunities, even a book deal. I graduated valedictorian. Turns out I had always been smarter than everyone thought. I got into my first choice college with a full scholarship. I'm studying criminal justice now, with plans to become a prosecutor. Amy Chen and I became close friends. She transferred to a different school and is doing much better now. She often tells people that I saved her life. My family is proud of me. My parents brag about their daughter who brought justice to their small town. My brother tells everyone about his badass sister who took down the bullies. Everything worked out perfectly, almost too perfectly. But here's the thing I haven't told you yet, the thing I've never told anyone. I lied about almost everything. See, that night at the party, the first party, where they supposedly drugged me and took those photos? That never happened. Not the way I told you. The truth is, I went to that party planning to sleep with Tyler. I'd been thinking about it for weeks, and I'd decided that night was the night. So I drank, maybe more than I should have because I was nervous. Tyler and I went upstairs together, and yes, we had sex. But I was awake for all of it. I remember everything. And afterward, when I was getting dressed, Jessica and Sarah came in to check on me. They were drunk too, and they thought it would be funny to take some embarrassing photos of me while I was half-dressed and disoriented. It was stupid, it was wrong, but it wasn't assault. It was just teenagers being idiots. The photos they took were embarrassing, sure, but they weren't as bad as I described, and they only shared them with a few people. not the whole school. The viral spread, the memes, the harassment. I made most of that up. The real reason I was angry wasn't because they had destroyed my life. It was because they had seen me at a vulnerable moment and laughed about it. They had made me feel small and stupid and powerless, and I couldn't stand feeling powerless. So I decided to make them pay. Not just for what they had actually done, but for what they might do, for what they represented, for the fact that people like them, popular, confident, careless people, always seemed to get away with everything. I spent months crafting the perfect revenge. I manipulated Amy Chen into helping me by telling her lies about what Tyler and the others were planning. There was no second party, no plan to drug another girl. I made that up to get Amy on my side and to justify what I was about to do. The audio recording Amy made at the party, I wrote that script. I coached Tyler, Derek, Sarah, and Jessica on what to say, telling them we were making a funny video to post online about party confessions. They thought they were playing characters, acting out exaggerated versions of teenage stereotypes. They had no idea I was recording them for real. The drugs in Derek's possession, I planted them there after breaking into the hardware store. The evidence of his dealing, I fabricated it using photos and fake text conversations. Sarah's rejection from MIT, that was real, but she had told me in confidence months earlier when she was scared and needed someone to talk to. I used that information against her. Jessica's relationships with older men, also real but not illegal. She was 18, and the relationships were consensual. I twisted the facts to make them sound much worse than they were. The Rohypnol in my drink at the second party, I put it there myself, then had the drink tested immediately so it would show up positive. Tyler never drugged anyone. I destroyed 4 people's lives over a teenage prank that hurt my feelings. And the worst part? I enjoyed every minute of it. You want to know what I learned about myself that year? I learned that I'm very good at lying. I'm good at manipulating people. I'm good at finding their weaknesses and exploiting them. I learned that I don't feel guilt the way other people do. When Tyler was sentenced to 5 years in prison for crimes he didn't commit, I felt satisfied. When Derek's family lost their business because of the scandal, I felt proud of my work. When Sarah attempted suicide after the trial, I felt like justice had been served. I learned that I like having power over people. I like being the one who decides who gets punished and who gets rewarded. Most importantly, I learned that people will believe almost anything if you tell them what they want to hear. Everyone wanted to believe that I was the innocent victim and they were the evil bullies. It fit their narrative about how the world works, so they never questioned it. After the trials, I got hundreds of messages from other girls telling me their own stories of bullying and assault. They called me brave, called me an inspiration. They had no idea they were praising a sociopath. Because that's what I am. I know that now. I've done the research, taken the tests, talked to professionals, without telling them the truth, of course. All the signs are there. The lack of empathy, the manipulation, the grandiose sense of self-worth, the complete absence of genuine remorse. I'm not the hero of this story. I'm the monster. Tyler got out of prison last month. He's a registered sex offender now. Can't get a job, can't go to college, can't have a normal life. His crime? Making a stupid joke while thinking he was acting in a comedy sketch. Derek is still in prison. His father had a heart attack from the stress of the scandal. His mother had to move in with relatives in another state because she couldn't handle the shame. Sarah never did attempt suicide. That was another lie. But she did drop out of college and move away. Last I heard, she was working at a gas station in another state, trying to rebuild her life under a different name. Jessica was released early for good behavior. She lives with her grandmother now and works as a night janitor at an office building. She's not allowed to be around anyone under 18. 4 lives destroyed, 4 futures ruined, 4 people who will carry the consequences of my lies for the rest of their lives. And me? I'm thriving. I'm in my 2nd year of law school now, top of my class. I have a prestigious internship lined up with the district attorney's office. I'm dating a wonderful guy who thinks I'm the most moral person he's ever met. I volunteer at a crisis center for sexual assault survivors. Everyone loves me. Everyone trusts me. Everyone thinks I'm one of the good guys. If they only knew. So why am I telling you this now? Why am I confessing to something that could destroy my carefully constructed life? Because I've realized something that terrifies me. I'm not done. These past 3 years of playing the hero, of being praised and admired, of having power and influence. It's been intoxicating. But it's not enough anymore. I've started noticing things about the people around me, weaknesses, secrets, vulnerabilities, and I've started making plans. My boyfriend mentioned that his ex-girlfriend has been stalking him. She's been sending him messages, showing up at places he goes, making his life difficult. He's frustrated because the police won't do anything about it. I could help with that. I could make her stop. Permanently. There's a girl in my study group who's been cheating her way through law school. She comes from a wealthy family and thinks she can buy her way to success. She's taking a spot that should go to someone more deserving. I could fix that too. My roommate has been stealing small amounts of money from me for months. She thinks I don't notice, but I do. I notice everything. She needs to learn that actions have consequences. The crisis center where I volunteer has this counselor who I don't think is qualified for her job. She's giving bad advice to vulnerable women. Someone should do something about that. And my law professor. The one who's been making inappropriate comments to female students for years. He really should face some consequences for his behavior. I have plans for all of them. Detailed, careful, foolproof plans. Because here's what I've figured out. The world is full of people who deserve to be punished, and I'm very good at punishing them. The system doesn't work. The police don't care. The courts are slow and unreliable, but me, I'm fast, I'm efficient, and I always get results. I'm like a superhero, except I don't have a moral code. I just have a talent for justice and an appetite for revenge, and I'm hungry. So that's my story. That's the truth about Emma Blackwood, the girl who got her revenge. But here's the real question. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to report me to the police? Good luck with that. I've been careful to make sure there's no evidence of what I really did. Every crime I committed has been covered up. Every lie I told has been corroborated by fake evidence. And even if you could prove what I did, who would believe you? I'm Emma Blackwood, the brave survivor who stood up to her attackers and won. I'm a role model, an inspiration, a symbol of female empowerment. You're just some anonymous person on the internet making wild accusations. Are you going to try to warn my future victims? How? You don't know who they are, and they wouldn't believe you anyway. People see what they want to see, and they want to see me as the good guy. Are you going to try to contact Tyler, Derek, Sarah, or Jessica and tell them the truth? Go ahead. Tyler is a registered sex offender whose word means nothing. Derek is a convicted drug dealer. Sarah is living under an assumed name and wants nothing to do with her past. Jessica is a felon who most people assume is lying about her innocence. Even if they spoke out, who would listen? The truth is, I'm untouchable. I've built the perfect life on a foundation of lies, and there's nothing you can do to tear it down. Unless you're just like me. Maybe you're listening to this story, and instead of feeling horrified, you're feeling inspired. Maybe you have people in your life who deserve to be punished, and you're wondering if you have what it takes to do what I did. Maybe you're tired of being powerless, tired of watching bad people get away with things, tired of waiting for karma to catch up with the people who've wronged you. If that's you, then I want you to know something. You probably don't have what it takes. What I did requires a special kind of person, someone who can lie without guilt, manipulate without conscience, destroy lives without losing sleep. Someone who can look a crying teenager in the eyes as they're sentenced for crimes they didn't commit, and feel nothing but satisfaction. Someone who can comfort a suicide attempt, survivor while secretly being disappointed that they survived. Someone who can be praised as a hero while knowing they're actually the villain. If you think you're that kind of person, then maybe we should talk. But if you're not, if you still have a conscience, if you still feel empathy, if you still believe in actual justice instead of personal revenge, then stay away from people like me, because we're everywhere. We're in your schools, your workplaces, your neighborhoods. We're the ones who seem too good to be true, who always have the perfect response, who somehow always come out on top. We're the ones who volunteer at charities while planning our next victim, who comfort crying friends while cataloging their weaknesses, who smile and nod when you tell us your secrets, already thinking about how we can use them against you. We're the monsters hiding in plain sight. And the scariest part is that most of the time, even we don't know what we are until it's too late. I'm recording this confession at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday night. Tomorrow, I have a job interview with one of the most prestigious law firms in the state. They're looking for someone with strong moral character and a passion for justice. I'll get the job. I always do. Next week, I'm giving a speech at a high school about bullying prevention and standing up for yourself. The students will hang on every word. Their teachers will praise my message. Their parents will wish their own daughters could be more like me, if they only knew. But here's the thing that's been keeping me awake at night. I'm starting to wonder if I'm the only one. What if Tyler really was planning to drug another girl that night? What if Derek really was dealing drugs? What if the evidence I fabricated was just exposing truths that were already there? What if, in trying to frame them for crimes they didn't commit, I accidentally revealed crimes they actually had committed? What if they weren't innocent victims after all, but just better at hiding their guilt than I was at hiding mine? What if the real story isn't about a sociopathic girl who destroyed 4 innocent lives, but about 5 sociopaths who found each other and played a game where only the smartest one survived? What if everyone is lying, everyone is guilty, and there are no heroes in this story at all? I've been thinking about this possibility for months now, and it changes everything. Because if they were all monsters too, then maybe what I did wasn't evil. Maybe it was just evolution. The strongest predator eliminating the competition. Maybe the world isn't divided into good people and monsters. Maybe it's divided into monsters and prey, and the only real choice is which one you want to be. I've made my choice. The question is, what's yours? Before I end this recording, I need to tell you one last thing. Something that might be the most important part of this entire story. I lied about lying. Everything I told you in the beginning. About Tyler drugging me. About the photos. About the humiliation. That was all true. They did destroy my life, and they deserved what happened to them. The part about fabricating evidence, manipulating Amy, planting drugs, that was the lie. I told you I made it all up because I wanted to see how it would feel to confess to being the villain. I wanted to know if I was capable of that kind of guilt. Turns out I'm not. Even pretending to be a sociopath felt wrong, because I'm not one. I'm just a girl who got hurt and decided to fight back. Or maybe that's another lie. And the confession was true. And this is just me trying to cover my tracks because I got scared of what I revealed. Or maybe everything I've told you is true. And I really am a sociopath who's now playing mind games with you just because I can. The truth is, you'll never know for sure. And that's the point. In a world where anyone can lie about anything, where social media lets people create perfect false versions of themselves, where we're all performing our lives for invisible audiences, how can you ever really know who someone is? How can you trust anyone? How can you even trust me? Maybe Emma Blackwood isn't even my real name. Maybe I'm not a law student at all. Maybe I'm a middle-aged man in his basement making up stories to see how people react. Maybe I'm a teenager who's been bullied and is fantasizing about revenge. Maybe I'm a writer, researching a book about sociopaths and narcissists. Maybe I'm an FBI agent studying how people respond to confessions of fake crimes. Maybe I'm exactly who I said I am, and everything I told you happened exactly as I described it. The point is, you can't know. You can never really know. And if you can't trust me, someone who just spent 40 minutes telling you intimate details about the worst period of my life, then who can you trust? Your best friends? Your romantic partners? Your family members? How do you know they're not all just like me, hiding behind masks of normalcy while planning your destruction? How do you know you're not just like me too, and you just haven't realized it yet? Long pause. Sweet dreams. Final pause. This has been Emma Blackwood, and this is my story, whether any of it is true. Well, that's for you to decide. But remember, monsters are real. They look like everyone else. They sound like everyone else. And they might be closer than you think.